Greetings everyone from our lovely island here in the sun. Welcome to our tutorial on Microsoft Excel. And if you've never used Microsoft Excel before, it is a spreadsheet program that allows you to perform some calculations by inputting formula into that spreadsheet organized into columns and rows. Now, if you have a copy of Microsoft Office, then you are afforded a copy of Microsoft Excel, so you can create Excel documents accordingly. I am going to start Microsoft Excel. I have a copy here on my desktop. You might find yours in the start menu and go into programs depending on the operating system that you're using. Once you open a copy of Microsoft Excel, then you will find, just like Microsoft Word, if you've ever taken a look at one of our tutorials in Word where we talk about the ribbon and the groups within that ribbon, then you'll find that there is a similar ribbon within Microsoft Excel with tabs and groups where you could actually search for options within each group that is related to that group itself. So for example, there's a home tab and a clipboard group, a font group, an alignment group, a number group, and so forth and so on. And then within each group you'll find the options related to it. Alright, so I closed my document by accident just now. I was moving too fast, so I'm going to jump back to my file or backstage view. I'm going to choose new, and I'm going to actually work with a blank workbook. Note though, just like Microsoft Word, you do have a number of templates that you can choose from. So depending on your immediate endeavor, you might find that there is an Excel document that has already been created for you, and you can change the information within these templates accordingly. If you're just starting out with Excel, because these templates are a little bit advanced, then my advice is to actually start with a blank workbook. So I'm going to click on my blank workbook, and here my Excel document is populated within the main window here. I'm actually using a copy of Microsoft Excel 2016, and in this version we start with only one sheet. We can rename this sheet, and you can think about this Excel document as a book. It's called book 1 as a matter of fact, and within this book 1 we could have several sheets with different information. So for example, let's say we are starting an Excel document to actually handle the data for a business, right? So we might rename our sheet 1, give it a more relevant name. For example, if you double click on the sheet 1 name here, the sheet 1 is highlighted, and you could give it the name of your business. Let's say my business, for example. Once you do that, if I'm actually going to click on one of the cells in the main window here firstly to get out of this editing profile, and note that there is a plus icon right beside the sheet. I'm going to hit this plus icon to create a new sheet. This new sheet is labeled sheet 2. I'm going to double click sheet 2, and I'm going to name this, let's say, my business clients, for example. So now I have two sheets, one with my business. I might be saving information on products here, and in my second sheet I might want to store some information on my clients. Alright, it is also an option to change the color of your sheet name tab. If you right click on the sheet name, my business for example, and scroll to tab color, you're able to choose a color and do the same with the following sheet. Maybe colors that coincide with your company's colors or your school's colors, depending on the purpose of the sheet itself. Now, it is prudent whenever you create an Excel sheet, even if this document is created for your purposes only, for you to add formatting to the sheet so that it is aesthetically pleasing. All right, so let's say for example we wanted to include the name of the business within the sheet. Maybe this is being sent to a client, maybe a partner, maybe somebody else, and so you want it to be presentable. So I'm going to enter my business in cell A1. Note that the cells are actually numbered and lettered. You have your columns going across like this or running down, and you can think about a column as a column that is actually standing, a post that is standing, and your rows run down this way. So the columns are lettered and the rows are numbered, and the intersection of a row and a column is actually called the cell name. You can find the cell name here, A1, and if I should jump to the intersection of K and 2, it tells me here that my cell is now K2. Okay, so we can then begin to organize data in different ways in our Excel sheet. My business right now is really small, and because it is the title of my business, I think it probably is wise to make it a little bit larger. Now, it seems as if the my business text is running across into B2, but if I should enter text in B2, notice that the text in A1 goes away. So this means that the information is here in A1, but it is being displayed across B. I'm going to highlight from A1 to H1. This is known as a range of cells. So from A1, I would click in the middle of cell A1, and without letting go of that click, simply drag across all the way through H1. If you make a mistake, it's fine. Don't let go of that click and drag up once more or down depending on the error that you made. So I've highlighted A1 through H1, and a very useful tool in Microsoft Excel is located within the alignment group here from the home tab. Within the alignment group, there's a merge and center option. I'm going to click on that, and what that does is it merges and centers all the cells from A1 through H1. And because these cells are now merged, any formatting that I apply to this cell, this one cell, will be applied here. Okay, so I'm going to click on that A1 cell, and I'm going to use my grow font tool within the font group. I like using that grow font tool as opposed to changing it from within the font size menu here. So I'm going to use my grow font tool to simply grow the font to roughly about, let's say, 36 points. And I'm going to apply some shade. The colors I used here was yellow and blue, so I'm going to apply, let's say, a yellow shade to the cell that was just merged, and let's say a blue color to the text by using the fill option and the change font color option within my font group. From here, I might also want to include the slogan for my business. My slogan might be something along the lines of our business is making, let's say, your business better, whatever your slogan is. And we could simply trace those steps that we did before by now selecting A2 through H2, merging and centering those, and maybe we could inverse the colors here. So instead, we would probably change the fill color here to maybe a light blue color and the font to a yellow color. And of course, because this is a slogan, we would apply the italics to it. All right, I'm going to use my grow font tool not to make it too large. And here we have applied some formatting to our business so far. Okay, now let's say we are selling items, simple items, and we wanted to know how much we're making for the month of January, for example. So let's enter what is called a label within the sheet. A label is the name of an item. So for example, we might enter an item label, and the item label would then allow us to enter the items that we sell. For example, let's say we sell laptops, we sell cell phones, we sell tablets, and we sell USB drives. So we have an item label for these here. And let's enter a price label. Note that I'm simply clicking on a cell to enter the information. I don't have to double click. If you click on a cell once, typing will replace the information that is in that cell. So if you make a mistake and you want to edit what is in that cell, you'll have to double click to then go into what is known as editing mode. So I entered a label for price, and let's say our laptop is, we only sell one kind of laptop, and it costs, let's say, $350. The cell is $4.99. We have tablets for $170, and we have USB drives for $15, which I think is reasonable. So far we've entered our label for price, and we have actually now entered values for the price of each item that we're selling. I'm going to enter another label here called selling price, and my selling price will actually be the price that we're selling each item for. So this probably should have been cost, and this is our selling price. So the cost is a little bit high, but that's fine. Let's say we sell our laptops for $450, and we sell the cell for $550. We sell the tablets for let's say $199, and we sell the USBs for $19.99. So far we have a cost, how much it cost us each item within the inventory, and how much we're actually selling each one for. It then becomes easy for us to actually create a total profit cell. But notice that my selling price is actually cut off. It means that there's not enough space here to display the text. Now we could make the text itself smaller, but that is actually going to make it smaller than the rest of the labels, so we won't have uniformity there. So that's not a good option. If you make a mistake or you create an error within Excel, notice that you still have the option to undo that. And a better choice is to actually scroll to the column itself. In this case, the information that needs to be displayed is within column C. So I'm going to actually scroll between column C and D, and I'm going to double click to automatically resize the cell, the row, sorry, of column C to the actual space that it needs to display all text within that column. So if I had text that was extremely long in one cell, what double clicking between C and D would do is to actually make that cell, that column, large enough to display the contents in every single cell within column C. Let me undo by holding Control and Z on my keyboard. Now, we've entered labels so far. Our next step is to calculate profit. Now, if you were doing this on paper, you probably would simply say, well, in order for me to get my profit, I would take away this 350 from the 450. Within Excel, it's the same process, but you need to know how to write your formula. Within Excel, you write a formula by starting with an equal sign, always. So essentially, you're telling Excel that anything within this cell is actually equal to something. Now, what is it equal to? It is going to be equal to, we could say, 450 minus that original $350 and enter. That in essence gives you your profit. So 450 minus 350, that's our formula, equals, anything inside the cell is equal to 450 minus 350. And it shows you the amount here. Now, this is good. If we write our formula like this, it is good, but there is one problem. If we do it this way, then we're going to have to rewrite that formula in the next cell, which is 550 minus 499, and then the next cell and the next cell and the next cell. This can get cumbersome. Imagine if you have hundreds of products within your inventory that you're actually selling. Excuse me. Imagine if you have hundreds of products within your inventory that you're actually selling. That's going to be an issue. So an easier way, I'm going to click on these two cells and take these out. An easier way is for us to actually work with cells directly instead of the values within those cells. So I'm going to start with my equal sign. I'm going to hit or click on C6. And by clicking on C6, Excel enters the C6 cell in my formula. And then the minus sign, which is right next to the plus sign or above the P on the keyboard. And I'm going to minus that from, as you can guess, B6. So now I'm actually telling Excel that anything inside this cell is equal to C6 minus B6. And Excel knows that within C6 is 450 and within B6 is $350, so it should minus or calculate those values within those cells. So if I hit enter, notice that you get the same figure as before. This is essentially going to make our lives a lot easier, because one is, if I should click on this D6 cell and scroll to the bottom right, notice that the cursor changes when it gets to this dot. It changes to a small plus. That is essentially going to now allow me to click and drag down. What Excel does in this case is it drags the formula down but changes the cell relative to the row. So we started with C6 and B6, for example. Excel is smart enough to know that when we go down one space, we should now be calculating C7 and B7, and then C8 and B8, and so forth and so on. So by inputting cells directly into the formula, what we're doing is allowing our lives to be easier by dragging formulas accordingly. Another way, let me get rid of this, in which we could do that is to simply click on cell D6. Notice there's a formula bar here that shows what the formula is inside that cell, and we could actually copy that. Excel is not going to copy the value, it is actually going to copy the formula. If that's the case, we can then highlight the range D7 to D9, and we can simply go to the clipboard group and hit paste, and Excel will paste the formula within those cells. Okay, so it is important to note that 1, we're starting our formula with an equal sign. 2, we're working with cells and not values within those cells. And 3, we can actually calculate just about anything within Microsoft Excel if we know what type of formula we should be entering. For example, we know that if we wanted to calculate the profit, it would be this 350, or this 450 rather, minus the 350. We can calculate percentages, we can calculate sums, we can calculate averages, and a host of other types of data within Microsoft Excel. Another reason why we want to work with our cells is because if a month or 2 months down the road and you had hundreds of records, hundreds of values within here, you found out that you made a mistake and these values were actually $100 less. If you had, let's say my first value, my first formula was actually 450 minus 350. If we had input numbers inside here and had done that for every single value, if we find out later on that the cost was actually $100 less, like this was 250 for example, then we're going to have to go into our values here and change these as well. Notice that it's still saying, notice that it is still saying 100 even though this changed. So we're going to have to go in here and change this to 250 as well to get the actual price. I'm moving a little bit too fast. So this is, let me undo everything I just did. This is the reason why we are working with the cells directly, because if this changes, I have actually changed my formula back to C6 and B6. So if this changes to 250, notice that my formula here will change, and every other formula will actually change depending on whether or not they're linked by using cells. All right, we could also jump to the end of our column here and we could choose to add all the costs by using the plus symbol and clicking on each cell, similar to what we did before, to find out what our total cost is. And we could also, just like we did for the total profit, we could drag this across. An easier way, I'm going to undo that, an easier way to actually calculate the sum of a range of cells is to simply go to your editing group from your home tab and click on the AutoSum function. The AutoSum function will automatically insert the sum formula, and this is how your formula looks within Excel. Anything within this cell is equal to the sum of B6 to B9. If I hit enter, I still get the same formula as before, but this is a lot easier than typing equal B6 plus B7 plus B8 plus B9, and if you had other cells, you must hit the plus sign for each. So using the sum function is a lot easier in that regard. I'm going to hit enter, and I'm simply going to scroll to the bottom right and drag all the way across. So it works. One final element within Excel that I'd like to show, or two final elements quickly that I'd like to show, is the conditional formatting option. The conditional formatting allows you to apply some formatting to your sheet that has specific conditions. So for example, I could highlight my, let's say, my total profit cells here, and I want to know all the cells that are making over $150. So anything over 150 I want to be highlighted, and bear in mind that you might have hundreds of records in here, and so it's going to be very hard for you to go through each record to highlight or find all those that are doing well, all those that are over 100 or over 200. So what we're going to do is to highlight from D6 to D9, and from the styles group I'm going to my conditional formatting. Highlight cell rules is probably the best bet here, and because we're looking for those over a certain amount, we're going to go to the greater than option, and we could change the values here. We said, let's say 100, so anything over $100 will be highlighted. Red is probably not best because red suggests that that's not doing well, and that's not the case here. So we would change this to maybe green fill with dark green text and then hit OK. So Excel is now highlighting the values that are more than $100. Note that within the conditional formatting there are several highlight cell rules. You could choose to highlight a cell that contains a certain text string, contains a certain date, less than an amount, so we could highlight less than, let's say, 20 for this, or we could highlight the top 10%, bottom 10%. We could also choose to insert data bars, which is a very quick way of inserting charts almost into the cells themselves, so that you can see who is doing well and who is not doing so well. Alright, it is advisable that you go through each within Excel and practice as much as possible with each one to see what they do, so that you can make maximum use of the conditional formatting. And finally, one option that many people have issues with is inserting a chart, and the issue comes up because we are almost always not highlighting the elements that we want to appear in the chart. For example, I want to create a chart that shows the total profit for each item. If I should highlight from item to USB, and I highlight from total profit to D11, which is an empty space, I'm going to have some issues in there. So we must highlight just the cells that we want. So let's highlight from A5 to A9, for example, which is the items. And if you hold Control on your keyboard and highlight D5 to D9, which corresponds, then we can simply jump to the Insert tab, and from within the Charts group we could choose a chart to compare these types of data. A pie chart might work, maybe even a column or bar chart might work. I like the pie chart, so I'm going to go to the pie charts, and I like the idea of a 3D pie. So clicking on that 3D pie will automatically insert this 3D pie for me. Note that there's a chart styles group if this chart is selected. If you deselect that chart, the chart styles group goes away. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on my chart tools, design, jump to my chart styles, and from here I have a number of different styles that I can choose from that might be appropriate. Notice too that there's a quick layout tab that allows you to change the layout of the chart depending on what you find to be most appropriate. Okay, so this concludes our tutorial on Microsoft Excel, how you go about creating an Excel document with relevant data including some aesthetics to that document, inserting values and labels, completing some simple calculation within Microsoft Excel, and using the conditional formatting along with creating charts. All right, we hope you found this useful. Please free to leave a comment and let us know how we are doing.